Do you still believe that canned food at Walmart is the safest choice for your family? It may sound convenient and budget-friendly, but once you learn the truth behind those seemingly harmless cans, you will never look at them the same way again. Many products have had their recipes altered, ingredients downgraded in quality. And worse, some canned foods have been found to contain undeclared allergens or additives exceeding safe limits. And it is not just about health. In recent years, tariff policies have had a major impact on the quality of food on store shelves. When imported ingredients became more expensive, many manufacturers chose the cheapest and most dangerous path. If you have always thought you were saving money by buying canned food at Walmart, this video will make you think twice. Here are 10 canned foods you should never buy at Walmart. Number 1. Yellowstone Baked Beans. If you have ever thought canned baked beans were the safest item in your pantry, you are not alone. Millions of Americans regularly pick up cans of Yellowstone baked beans at Walmart because the flavor brings back memories of family dinners, a backyard fire pit, and a warm bowl of beans in the middle of winter. But behind the cozy labels that say home style and brown sugar molasses lies a very different and far less pleasant story. Last year, a batch of Yellowstone products was officially recalled by the FDA. The reason they contained soy, a serious allergen, but it was never listed on the label. Imagine buying a can of beans, cooking it for your child, and then watching them break out in hives or struggle to breathe. Not because you were careless, but because the manufacturer ignored one of the most basic rules of food safety transparency about ingredients. But it did not stop there. Quiet changes to Yellowstone's recipe began when the US imposed steep tariffs on agricultural imports from Canada. Dried beans from the north used to be a mainstay for many American food companies because they were affordable and high quality. When tariffs pushed prices up, producers were forced to look for domestic alternatives. It may sound patriotic, but in reality it meant a string of quality compromises from suppliers without proper certifications to shipments that were mixed with other varieties or sat in storage for too long. Since then, the familiar cans you used to buy may no longer be the same. The beans might be softer, the sweetness more intense, or the aftertaste a bit strange, but most shoppers would not notice. They trust that if the label looks the same, the quality must be the same. And that is the mistake many families are now paying for. This is not just the story of one dish. It is a clear example of how macro-level economic policies are directly shaping what ends up on your dinner table. The question is if something as simple as a can of beans can become a risk. What can you truly trust in your grocery cart anymore? Number 2. Great Value Canned Tuna. Have you ever stood in front of the canned fish aisle at Walmart, seen the low price of Great Value and thought, saving a few bucks for a quick meal? Why not? On the surface, it sounds reasonable, but when you look deeper into that small can, things are not so simple. Great Value Canned Tuna is one of Walmart's best sellers thanks to its rock-bottom price. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself what was sacrificed to get it? That cheap part of it comes from the quality of the fish. Many batches are sourced from waters with little oversight where tracking the catch's origin is nearly impossible. The other part, which is even more concerning, lies in the packaging process. In 2024, a report from the group Ocean Truth revealed that some batches of Great Value Tuna contained unusually high levels of histamine. This compound forms when fish is not kept at the right temperature after being caught. Eating fish with elevated histamine can trigger poisoning symptoms like headaches, flushed skin, dizziness, stomach pain, and nausea, which are easy to mistake for regular food poisoning and often go unnoticed. But that is not even the worst part. An independent investigation found that many cans of Great Value Tuna did not actually contain 100% tuna as customers believed. Up to 20% of the weight came from filler fish, meaning other types of fish ground up and mixed in to bulk up the weight and cut costs. This practice is not illegal since it falls within certain industry standards, but is it fair to the buyer? Now stop and think. Are you eating tuna to get clean protein, or are you unknowingly putting into your body a blend of unknown fish, carrying the risk of allergies and digestive issues? The cheaper a product is, the more carefully it needs to be checked. Do not let a can of tuna make you feel safe just because it has the Walmart label. Some things look perfectly normal but hide a reality that could shock you. And sadly, you may not notice until your health starts sending warning signs. Number 3. Canned chicken. Have you ever bought canned chicken thinking it was the quickest way to get a protein-filled meal with no thawing and no complicated cooking? If you have, you are not alone. Thousands of Americans, especially seniors living alone, rely on these no-name cans of chicken every day. But what many do not realize is that the origin and production process of this food may carry more risks than they think. An internal report from the poultry industry in 2025 revealed that many batches of chicken used in these no-name products came from slaughterhouses that had been temporarily shut down for violating sanitation procedures. Once they reopened, massive backlogs of stored meat were quickly processed into canned chicken. It is called chicken, but many of these products contain a high percentage of connective tissue cartilage and even ground chicken skin parts that have little to no nutritional value. On top of that, ever since the US raised tariffs on canned foods from South America, many producers have quietly cut costs by changing the preservation liquid. What used to be brine and natural seasonings has been replaced with cheap chemical preservatives. The result: altered flavor, a faint fishy smell, and more importantly, an increased risk of digestive issues for the elderly and young children. Have you ever opened a can of chicken and seen lumps of fat floating around? Have you ever wondered why the meat looks so soft it nearly falls apart with just a spoon? That is not convenience. That is a clear sign you are eating recycled meat disguised as a quick meal. A can of chicken might save you a few minutes in the kitchen. But if the trade-off is a weaker digestive system and feeling drained after you eat, is it really worth it? Remember, not every canned food deserves a place in your home. Number 4. Chef Boyardee Pasta Meals. When you hear the name Chef Boyardee, you might think of childhood quick after-school meals, or those lazy evenings when cooking felt like too much work. But when you're an adult facing rising prices, health warnings, and growing concerns over processed foods, putting your trust in a can of spaghetti is a whole different story. Chef Boyardee has always been known for convenience. You just heat it up for a few minutes and dinner's ready. But have you ever wondered how a meal can sit on a store shelf for an entire year without spoiling? The answer comes down to one thing: synthetic preservatives. And unfortunately, this pasta is also among the highest in sodium content in the convenience food aisle. One can pack over 50% of the daily recommended sodium intake for adults, a worrying figure for older people dealing with high blood pressure or heart conditions. It doesn't stop there. In an effort to keep prices steady amid rising production costs driven by wheat and cooking oil import tariffs from Europe, the company quietly changed its pasta and oil ingredients. Whole grain pasta was replaced with low-fiber white flour noodles. The sauce became thinner with less real tomato and more reconstituted tomato paste mixed with artificial thickeners. Noticed a strange sweetness in your canned pasta lately? That's not from the tomatoes, it's from high fructose corn syrup, a cheap sweetener widely used in processed foods already linked to higher risks of diabetes and metabolic issues. Don't let the nostalgia of the past blur the reality of today. A dish that once symbolized convenience is slowly becoming a sugary trap for your health. And the scariest part is the more familiar it feels, the less cautious we become. So next time you see Chef Boyardee on sale, ask yourself, are you buying a meal or buying into a long-term trade-off? The ease of a canned pasta now could become a steep price for your health down the road. Number 5. Canned fruit in heavy syrup. When you think of canned fruit, especially the kind packed in heavy syrup, most people picture a healthy dessert, something convenient you can enjoy year-round. The truth is nothing like that image. If you're hoping to get vitamins, fiber, and real nutrition from fruit, this is the very last place you should look. Ever checked the back label of a can of peaches, pears, or pineapple and wondered why something naturally healthy has just as much sugar as a can of soda? The answer is the syrup itself, a mix of refined sugar glucose and preservatives used to preserve the fruit and extend its shelf life. A single can pack over 30 grams of sugar, which is about 7 teaspoons. And yes, that's true, even when the label doesn't spell out sweetened. Many older adults believe canned fruit is still healthier than candy, but that's the exact illusion many companies rely on, keeping the wholesome image of fruit while selling you an industrial dessert in disguise. As the body ages, it becomes less efficient at processing sugar. Eating highly concentrated sugar like this every day can quietly lead to insulin resistance, chronic fatigue, and even worsen heart symptoms. What's worse, many syrups used in imported canned fruit are directly affected by tariffs on ingredients entering the US. When natural cane sugar becomes more expensive due to import taxes, manufacturers simply switch to domestic industrial corn syrup, which is cheaper but higher in fructose and harder on your liver's sugar metabolism. Have you ever thought that a light dessert could put this much strain on your heart and blood sugar? And when products like this are sold at Walmart for cheap and often on sale, it traps people in a vicious cycle. The more you try to save, the more you eat, and the harder it is to escape the consequences. A can of fruit should not be something you have to worry about. But in today's food industry, sometimes the things that seem the healthiest are the ones doing the most damage. Those labels promising real fruit and fresh taste can be nothing more than a cover for a sugar-loaded dessert. Number 6. Vienna Sausages. Small, convenient, and cheap. That is why Vienna Sausages have held their spot on Walmart shelves for decades. Pop the lid and they are ready to eat, or you can toss them into noodle salad or a sandwich. Seems harmless enough, right? But if you have ever bought a can without really reading the ingredient list, you might have been putting a mix into your body that you do not fully understand. Vienna sausages are nothing like the fresh sausages you get from a butcher. To survive months or even years inside a can, manufacturers load them with stabilizers, artificial colors, and nitrite preservatives. When nitrites interact with proteins in processed meat, they can form nitrosamines, a compound the WHO has listed as a possible human carcinogen. Then there is the question of the meat itself. Unlike premium sausages that have clear sourcing, many Vienna sausage brands, especially the budget lines sold at Walmart, do not openly disclose the ratio of meat skin organ parts or plant fillers they use. That means you have no idea how much real meat you are eating versus the leftovers from mass processing. Trade policy plays a role here too. When the government slapped steep tariffs on meat imports from Europe, where food standards are stricter, producers switched to cheaper domestic sources with looser oversight. As a result, Vienna sausages in the US can legally contain meat that would never qualify as USDA grade meat, simply because it is labeled as a processed product. Ever noticed a strange, almost chemical smell when you crack open a can? Or found the sausage texture mushy like paste without any real bite? That is not an accident. It is the outcome of cutting costs, trimming corners, and using additives to mask what the product really is. Convenience has its place. But if something is so convenient that you no longer know what you are actually eating, maybe it is time to pause. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in your kitchen is the one you have been keeping there for years without question. Number 7. Canned chili. A quick dinner with a hot can of chili doesn't sound so bad, especially for people living alone or on a tight budget. At Walmart, you can find every kind of canned chili from mild to blazing hot, from beef chili to vegetarian chili. But do you really know what you're eating? And is what's called chili today? Anything like the traditional version once simmered in a cast iron pot out in the backyard. Take a closer look at the ingredients. In many canned chilies, especially the budget brands, beef makes up only a small fraction of what's inside. The bulk is beans fillers, vegetable oil, and artificial flavoring. Some producers use meat powder or even textured vegetable protein mixed with artificial beef flavor to cut costs. It might sound harmless, but TVP is processed with chemical solvents like hexane, which has been flagged for potential health risks if it builds up in your body over time. Then there's the sodium problem. One can of chili can pack anywhere from 900 to 1200 milligrams of salt, which is roughly half to 2/3 of the daily limit for adults. For seniors or anyone with heart issues, that's a dangerous amount. But the bigger question is, why has chili gotten so salty in the first place? The answer once again comes down to tariffs. When the US hiked tariffs on imported spices and herbs, especially from Mexico and India, many chili makers swapped real spices for artificial seasoning powders, which lack the depth of natural flavor. To make up for the missing taste, they added more salt. The result is that a dish with deep cultural roots has turned into something overly salty and loaded with chemicals, Ever opened a can of chili and caught a strange whiff, almost like plastic or artificial MSI? Or felt the heat hit your tongue but leave no real flavor behind? That's a clear sign your chili has been flavor engineered, built not from real ingredients but from a long list of E numbers and hard to pronounce chemicals. Chili was once a dish that stood for warmth and community, but in its canned Walmart version, it's cheap, nutritionally poor, and packed with risks. When even a beloved tradition can be processed into something unrecognizable, what else on the shelf can we still trust? Number 8. Canned spinach. Spinach has long been seen as the poster child for green, clean, and nutritious food. Health-conscious shoppers, especially seniors, often grab canned greens, thinking at least it is still a vegetable, not fried, not fatty, and nothing to worry about. But if you have always believed that canned spinach from Walmart is a healthy choice, what you are about to hear might make you rethink that. Canned spinach, especially from budget brands, is often processed at extremely high temperatures during canning. The problem is that many of the nutrients in spinach, especially folate, vitamin C, and some antioxidants, are very sensitive to heat and are destroyed in the process. The result, you think you are eating vegetables to get more nutrients, but what you are really putting into your body is a soggy mass of plant fiber with very little nutritional value left. And that is not all. To keep that fake fresh look and bright green color, many manufacturers add calcium salt or artificial coloring to the packing liquid. This helps the leaves keep their shape and prevents them from turning dull gray. But for older adults with sensitive digestive systems, these preservatives are not harmless. Over time, they can cause indigestion, bloating, and even interfere with micronutrient absorption. From a business standpoint, since the US raised tariffs on frozen vegetables from Canada and Mexico, many canned vegetable suppliers have shifted to domestic sources. These often come from hot climate states, where crops are harder to preserve. That means the raw spinach is lower quality, more prone to bruising, and more likely to need heavy reinforcement with chemicals just to meet market standards. Have you ever opened a can of spinach and caught that pungent, grassy smell? Or tasted it and felt a strange mix of metal and crushed weeds? That is not just bad spinach. That is spinach that has been over-processed and stripped of the freshness it once had. There's nothing wrong with the idea of canned spinach itself. The problem is how it has been twisted by commercialization tariffs and the pressure to cut costs. And when something that used to be clean greens is no longer clean, the real question for shoppers is, how many truly safe choices are left for your daily meals? Number 9. Canned mushroom. Mushrooms are one of the most beloved and nutrient-rich foods across America, showing up in everything from stews and creamy sauces to pizza. And when there is no time or money for fresh mushrooms, many people turn to the canned version for convenience, low cost, and long shelf life. But if you think a can of mushrooms is anywhere close to the real thing, you are making a big mistake, and you might be quietly harming your own health without realizing it. First, mushrooms are incredibly sensitive to how they are stored. Once they go through industrial processing and get sealed in a can, their texture changes completely. They lose their sponginess, their living enzymes, and most importantly, they can easily absorb metals from the very lining of the can itself. This is especially true with cheaper cans that are poorly coated or made from recycled materials, which is common among budget products found at Walmart. A 2024 study from the University of Iowa discovered that in certain canned mushroom samples, the levels of tin and aluminum exceeded safe limits when consumed regularly. For older adults with weaker kidney function, this can lead to heavy metal buildup, which may cause fatigue, temporary memory loss, and even reduced neurological function. Then there is the brine problem. To extend shelf life, canned mushrooms are often soaked in a sodium-heavy solution that contains 3 to 5 times more salt than frozen fresh mushrooms. For those with high blood pressure or kidney disease, that is a serious health risk, but many overlook it because they assume mushrooms are harmless. Another factor is sourcing. Since the United States imposed higher tariffs on mushrooms from Asia and Europe, most of the mushrooms in canned products today come from industrial farms in the US or South America. These mushrooms are grown rapidly in low light conditions and pumped with growth accelerators. This makes them grow big fast but strips away most of their natural flavor and nutrients. Ever eaten canned mushrooms and noticed a faint bitterness? Felt that the pieces were firm but somehow refused to soak up sauce like fresh mushrooms do? That is not because your recipe failed. The problem started with the ingredient itself. A can of mushrooms might look harmless, but inside it hides layer after layer of problems you cannot see. And once it becomes a habit, you may no longer notice that you are trading your health for the sake of saving a few dollars. Number 10. Canned corned beef. If we had to crown one lifesaver food in the kitchens of millions of Americans, especially those who grew up in the 60s and 70s, canned corned beef would easily take the top spot. One salty can ready to eat the moment you pop it open, perfect for stir-frying, piling onto bread or tossing into porridge or noodles. But after decades of relying on this pantry staple, have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what exactly are we eating? Old-fashioned corned beef, the real thing was carefully made with solid chunks of beef rich with salt and spices. But today's canned corned beef, especially the bargain brands at Walmart, tells a very different story. Many products no longer use whole cuts at all. Instead, they are a mashup of ground meat fat tendons and additives. Some cans cannot even legally be called beef, but are labeled as beef-style protein blend, which is just a mix of synthetic proteins flavored to taste like meat. The reason in 2024 and 2025, the cost of importing beef from South America and Australia, two major suppliers of high-quality beef, shot up due to import tariffs. Manufacturers had to slash costs by buying leftover trimmings from processing plants, then rebuilding them with gelatin-binding agents and soy protein powder. The mixture is compressed into a block sealed in a can and sold under the comforting name corned beef. Another concern is the extremely high levels of sodium and nitrates used to preserve the meat and give it that artificially bright red color. Studies have linked long-term excessive nitrate consumption to a higher risk of colorectal cancer and high blood pressure, which is especially dangerous for people over 55. Have you ever opened a can of corned beef and found a thick layer of solid fat like candle wax? Or noticed the meat falling apart in dry, crumbly flakes even before heating it up? Those are not manufacturing errors. That is the hidden cost of shaving a few dollars off the price by using questionable ingredients and an industrial process that strips away nearly everything good. Canned food, once hailed as a hunger-saving invention during tough times, is now quietly becoming a driver of a looming health crisis. From meat and fish to vegetables and fruit, everything is being reshaped by trade pressures, tax policies, and a profit race among big corporations. The sad truth is that middle-aged and older consumers, the very people who once trusted these traditional brands, are now the most vulnerable. That kind of food you buy may feel like just a few bucks saved, but over time the real price could be a weakened immune system, drained health, and illnesses you never saw coming.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.